questions with you. city. Help us to be fair and just in all our decisions. Bless us all to do the very best we can. With your help and guidance, we pray this in your name. Amen. I'll call this meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 15th edition of the North College Hill City Council. I will call the roll. Ms. Dukes-Dean?
Present.
Ms. Blythe?
Here.
Ms. Underwood?
Present.
Mr. Miller-Novak? Here. Ms. Zorb?
Here.
Ms. DeWald?
Here.
Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
I believe that we have an issue. I know that it's not on the agenda, but it is an issue. So I was actually researching something else when I realized that, and I think that I had spoken to Ms. DeWald about this before, but as I was researching the other issue, I came across the answer to our question that I had spoke to Ms. DeWald about. Section 13.06 of our charter indicates that because Ms. DeWald won the election on November 2nd, that her term for the unexpired seat started on that day. So Ms. Blythe is no longer on city council as of Ms. DeWald winning her seat.
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald?
I have been to the Board of Elections twice about this, and they have recommended that I wait until the final numbers come out, and that I'm to address it with the director, the law director. I'm not sure, I don't know how I can clearly state this. This seat needed to be filled by a certain date, and that's why I'm in this seat. The elected seat doesn't need to be filled until January 1st. Any elected official out there who has been elected in November doesn't take the chair until January 1st. So that gives me time. I have to wait until the numbers come out, talk with Dieters, and find out just exactly how to maneuver both of these seats.
Mr.
Of course, I'm
President,
not going to occupy both of them.
Ms. Underwood?
I actually spoke to Mr. Dieters today, and he is the person who explained that that's how this is supposed to work.
Well, Mr. Dieters did not contact me to tell me that I was in error, if I am in error. Are you saying that, what exactly are you saying then?
Here's what I'm saying. I'm
Okay.
saying that we have 3 items on our agenda that are set for third reading and to be voted on today.
All right.
And if Ms. Blythe votes on that and it makes a difference, then it can cause problems later on that I don't want, and I don't want that to be our issue.
Mr. President,
Ms. Blythe?
I have paperwork that my term ends December 31st. I don't quite understand.
It's an unexpired term. So if you look at section 13.06 of the charter, it talks about the replacement's term if the original candidate serves less than 1 year. Mr. Hedger did serve less than 1 year. So the replacement's term of office shall extend only to the next general election if the original successful candidate was unable to serve at least 1 full year. Mr. Hedger did not serve 1 full year. I believe if he had served 1 full year, then the replacement's term of office would have been a different outcome, but it wasn't.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller-Novak?
well, so I know that, here's the problem with the Board of Elections. We're a charter city, so technically speaking, we define our terms, not the Board of Elections. It's not an election law issue, it's our charter. So, and I just want to be clear, like, this is confusing.
Yeah,
Okay.
because if I'd have known,
So it's not-
I wouldn't be here
No,
after November
but you
2nd.
don't, like, I want to be clear, this is not like anybody's done anything that's
Intentional.
bad, right?
Okay, I'm not accusing
No, I
anybody.
know that.
Right,
I know
okay.
that. I just want to be clear, so, because I hear your voice and things like that and inflections, I just want you to be clear that that's not the problem. The problem is, it's not even about, it's just about authority to vote, right? And the authority to be here. Technically speaking, if someone's term lawfully ends, whether or not they have the authority to vote. And this charter amendment, because it brought to my attention today, and I did talk to Mr. Dieters about it as well. So just some history about this charter amendment that I can add. It was actually a citizen initiative. It was Nick Link, actually, that passed this charter amendment, as well as the one that made our law director not like elected. Remember, he did those at the same time, so this was like a term limit thing that he passed and he petitioned for. And where it's placed in the charter is kind of wonky, because it's like in 13 as opposed to Article 3, probably where it would have made more sense. But the problem is it has the replacement's term ending on the date of the general election. You know, the Board of Elections wouldn't know what's in our charter, right? Because some offices, sometimes when they're elected to fill an appointed position, don't wait till January 1st. That's not true. Sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not. It ultimately depends on what laws control those terms of office and what don't. You know, and a concern I have is, and I don't know that we're going to have a good answer. I mean, for me, the good answer is kind of simple. You were lawfully elected to fill that office. You were lawfully appointed to fill the one you're in. It's not that hard. We can't do it today, but it's not that hard for you to start serving in that chair, and for your committee to elect, or whatever committee to elect appointed you, to appoint someone to fill that chair. Really. It's not like this isn't a problem that can't be fixed, but the concern I always have, and again, I just saw this today, I did talk to Bill, and there's not going to be any case law, because our charter is our charter, and the wording in our charter was passed by a citizen. It's not like that wording was taken from statutory code or other people's charters. It was a dude who wrote it and then passed out a petition. And it's not like it's worded bad, it's just the way it's worded is what our law is in North College Hill. So my concern is, after it's brought to my attention, is how do I get you in that chair, and then your committee replaces you in that chair? Because, you know, I don't know. I mean, the reality is we're about to pass a budget. We're about to do things that if someone doesn't like the things we want to do and they want to sue us under a taxpayer lawsuit for unlawfully doing things, that's a problem, right?
So what is, Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Wood.
sorry, so Mr. Miller-Novak, what is the resolve for tonight then?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't have an answer. I think that, I mean, if you ask me my gut is you're allowed to be there. The question is whether or not she's allowed to be there. That's the question. Your vote's validity isn't, I don't think, in question. I think hers could be. And so I guess in the long run, even if she was here and she made votes she shouldn't make, if like her vote wasn't the deciding factor, I doubt it matters anyway. So like say something took 4 votes and she was one of 5 votes, it's probably like, right? But if the vote required 4 votes and she was the 4th vote, then it might be like, right? There's just going to be a different reaction if there is a problem. You know, and at the end of the day, I don't know that bills, I mean, there's not going to be any case law. That's a problem with the home rule state, is that every city can have its own constitution, so to speak, that has language that no other city does. And it's just looking at the plain language. It gives me concern. And again, it's not like anybody's in any trouble or anything like that, or that's not my point. But yeah, I do have some concern. I don't know how to address it.
Mr. President,
Ms. Orb?
we've been talking about this a long time, and we've gone nowhere. Do you think it's possible for Ms. Blythe to possibly abstain from the votes tonight, and would that resolve the issue? Or is it better if she excuses herself and sits in the audience? Because I feel like those are the two options we have. There might be a third, I don't know, those are the two in my head.
I mean, from what I have heard, I am comfortable with Ms. Blythe sitting there, but I don't know that we should allow Ms. Blythe to vote tonight. So, Ms. Blythe, would you agree to abstain from votes tonight?
Sure.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
I think, just from what I am hearing, that seems like the understandable resolution to at least keep us from having any future issues on tonight's votes. And if Ms. Blythe's agreeable to it as she is, then that is how, that is how I feel we should proceed. Okay, thank you for that catch. All right, moving on then, we do have tonight's agenda to vote on.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood,
I move that we adopt tonight's agenda.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson,
I'll second that.
Just discussion real quick.
discussion.
So before the meeting, you told me that this third reading of Resolution 26, 2021,
That doesn't exist.
you told me to cross it off. So is this a new one that was emailed later?
Yeah, I told you I'd give you a
Okay,
copy.
so we are approving this one.
This is the one we are approving.
Cool.
not
Well,
the old one you're
I
looking
got
at.
nothing else then.
Yeah, that one I had 2 copies.
Sweet. Thank you.
All right. I will call the roll. Ms. Dukestein,
Yes.
Ms. Blythe,
Abstain.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller-Novak,
Yes.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes.
Ms. DeWald,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 with an abstention. All right, you have meeting minutes from the 11-1 meeting.
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald?
I have a few, they're grammatical errors. That's not going to change what's going on. But in a motion to accept the minutes, it's, I don't care that my name is spelled wrong, I know who I am. But it's not abstains, it should be abstains. When people read this in the future, I don't know how that's going to come out. On the very last paragraph on the first page, it says similar to 3 CDC. Now, I was here and I don't even know what that means. On the first page of the minutes.
There was discussion on that, about it being similar to the 3CDC organization in the city of Cincinnati.
Oh, well. So also, the first paragraph of the second page, I believe that should be Blythe instead of Bliff. Just another, throwing letters around makes it different. And then also, I was congratulated to be the top locator in the past. So if you looked at remarks from the audience where my husband stood up,
Yes, ma'am?
locator in the past, I don't know what that should be.
Top
And that-
vote getter.
Yeah, top vote getter is what it should be. So on the last page, it says ask, and it's got PPL. I just don't feel that abbreviations are appropriate for a document like this. I mean, we all know it means people.
Where's that at?
On the very last full paragraph on the last page. And it says ask PPL to move their cars. I just wonder if that should be spelled out. And then the very last line was DeWald mad emotion. So that's just another, it's missing a letter.
Were you angry when you said it?
I was mad.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms.
excuse
Dukestein?
me. I can make the corrections if you want, both my whole family, we've been sick for the last 2 weeks, and Mayor Nichols told me that I had until this meeting to complete them. President Graver contacted me the night before, so I didn't even have 24 hours to turn them around. So would you like me to correct them? Because I can.
I think we can go back and correct, I've made the notes of what needs to be corrected. We can do that.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am?
so when these are posted then, those things will be corrected, or just going to be put in the minutes that it needs to be corrected?
So we will have them corrected for that.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
can I just make a suggestion that we just not approve the minutes for today and just make the corrections and then bring them to the next meeting, to our next meeting, and approve them at the next meeting?
Anybody have a problem with that?
No.
Okay. Then we'll do that.
Mr. President,
Ms. Orr?
I would like to thank Ms. Dukestein for doing the minutes, especially since you were sick while doing it.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is communication. I did not see any communication. Does anybody have anything that would be considered communication? All right. Move to council committee, city, community development, and recreation.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. The last time we met was, November 8th at 6:30. We spent the majority of the meeting discussing parking laws and dumping laws that our city has. The discussion pretty much came to the point that we have enough laws, and they're pretty fairly stated, and they're pretty well stated. But the issue is more that they're not being enforced by the police, so we had asked that administration handle that on their part. There's nothing that council really needs to do there or can do there. Same with the dumping laws. We had found that according to the statement that the citizen had made a couple council meetings ago to us, that it seems that the situation was not handled correctly under our law. So we had asked that administration address that as well, and we trust that they will. So hopefully that will be taken care of soon. And we really appreciate that that person came and brought that to our attention so that we could discuss that and catch that mistake. I'm sure it was a mistake. We also had a update. Ms. Underwood had let me know that Mayor Nichols had possibly found an arborist, but I wasn't quite sure about that for the Tree City USA. But other than that, there's not much of an update on that because without an arborist, we can't move forward. The Homeowners Assistance Fund, we didn't have time to discuss it, as well as the Recreation Director and the Recreation Committee. There was no old or new business. We discussed a possible plan for the Adopt a Pot and Adopt an Island, but now knowing that there will be money for a recreation budget, I feel like that plan will probably be changed by our next meeting, so I don't think it matters for me to tell you guys what we talked about, because it probably doesn't matter anymore. And then we adjourned at 7:28 p.m. Thank you, sir. Oh, sorry, our next meeting is December, sorry, I should have had this ready for you.
13th?
December 13th at 6:30 p.m. here in council chambers.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you.
Next, budget and finance.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak.
I have a question.
Yes.
And I know I've been out of the loop for a little bit, with my father and all, but, this is the first time I saw this, Aquatix thing.
It's because I just pulled it out of my folder. That's old.
No, I just got it out of my thing. It's got my name on it.
Fancy that.
Been wrongfully accused of document theft. So,
Not theft.
so anywho,
Stay on your line.
I know, I know it's in our budget,
Yep.
at least now, to have a splash pad, right? We allowed to talk about that? I guess we could talk about it. It's a public record, right? It's in the budget. And then I'm looking at all these cool different packages, right? That we would pick from, right?
I'm
Ostensibly.
not sure what you're referring to, Mr.
This is the different splash pad options. Right?
The thing that Mimi Anderson put together with all of the, here, I can read it.
Was that Mimi
I
that did this?
apologize, I'm just so that
Make your copy.
just so that I'm clear, so I'm trying to understand where you are. So we do have money in the 2022 budget
For the splash
for a
pad,
splash pad.
which is good.
Okay.
That makes me happy.
Me too.
And then we've got this cool handout that has these different, like, pad options. There's like package A and there's like package B and
I
one's.
think, yeah, okay, so if, and I may be wrong with this, but I wanted to just clarify something. So we're in the very early stages. We have not, I was just out with our engineering firm last week to kind of discuss some general things. This would be information that would be good just so that people could kind of get an idea.
Okay.
But that's not to say that this is what we're using. We're
Or these aren't our options necessarily?
Right. These
Okay.
are not necessarily our options. It's just, this would be some examples perhaps of what might be possible. But again, we're still in the very early stages of it.
Well, I hope when we get to the later stages, we use community development to maybe make some of these decisions, because I'm on that committee now, and this would actually be really fun.
Sure,
I'm just saying, I didn't know.
it's not it's only because of where we are right now. Obviously,
Yeah.
the first thing we have to do is, as you pointed out, get it passed in the budget. And as I mentioned, we were kind of looking at where it would be located and then, how it would be drawn out. So the short answer to your question, as far as I was concerned, would be yes. It's just, we're just not at that place yet.
Oh, that sucks, because these look fun. This looks fun.
You know it's 30 degrees outside.
I'm just saying. You see the one with the plants and the butterfly? All right, sorry, I'm just
No,
excited.
I
So-
just wanted to make sure that we were clear on where we are on the.
Okay, well, I didn't know, because it was in my mailbox, so I thought maybe
Okay.
we were starting to discuss that. She's got her name on hers now,
Okay.
too. All right,
All right, next is budget and finance.
He's talking to you.
oh, yeah, sorry. Well, I missed the one meeting because I was in Youngstown, Ohio. I heard it was a lot of fun. And then we had another meeting yesterday, Sunday, and that was fun too. But, we're starting to cover the budget and, of course, have some back and forth about items on the budget. I know that some people wanted to discuss it today in new business, potentially. So I don't really want to use up a bunch of time going back over things that I think we'll end up discussing later today. So in the spirit of council economy and lack of redundancy, I think I'll just leave it at that. And I also expect, it was my feeling that in the past, we've often had the committee of the whole discuss the budget as opposed to finance. So that's a recommendation I would probably throw out there moving forward anyways.
Okay.
Okay.
And your next regular meeting would be December
Next regular
13th.
meeting would be the second Monday of December, but either we will have a special finance meeting between now and then, or we will use the committee of the whole, so I wouldn't expect the next time for us to discuss the budget will be that long from now.
Thank you. Next up, rules and public policy.
Thank you, Mr. President. The last time we met, we did not have a quorum. That was on October 25th. Our next meeting is scheduled for December, no, that's not right, November.
Make me look.
November 29th. Is that right? No, 22nd.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 22nd. So we will meet on November 22nd.
Thank you. And public safety.
Same thing, we didn't have a quorum at our last meeting, so our next meeting will be November 22nd.
Thank you. Any ad hoc reports? Hearing none, we'll move to administrative reports. Starting with the mayor's report. Good evening, Mayor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. President. With your ad hoc, tomorrow's planning commission meeting has been canceled, and then on Thursday, I believe that's the 18th is the CIC meeting here at 6:30. A couple of things I wanted to respond to Ms. Anderson when she was talking about the arborist. I did talk to Carla Belcher, and she found a couple people. She's waiting on one to call her back, but she did give me a name of an agency, but I don't know if we want to pay anybody. It's called Out on a Limb. She said they are expecting compensation. I did not tell her to look into what that compensation was because we want someone who might want to volunteer. I want to congratulate all of the elected officials on your win during the election. And I wanted to congratulate our fire department on a successful outcome of the levy. And I look forward to the good things that are happening or that will happen from this levy for our fire department. It was really needed. I appreciate all the citizens who went out and voted for it to get that levy passed. And I also want to thank the Fire Task Force for the work that they put in to bring back that recommendation so that we could get it on the levy and decide that's what we needed. And one last thing, our last food truck Friday for the year was, what was that, the 5th? It was nice again. It's nice to see the people come out, not just to get food, but they are communicating, talking amongst themselves, amongst one another, even after they're ordering. And it's nice to meet the vendors, and they want to come back and they want to be here. So our next one will be not until March, I believe, the first Friday in March. One of the gentlemen actually, he's like, he wants to come more frequently, even during the winter. So that's nice for us. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, I ate way too much that evening.
Yeah, because you go to each one, like, okay, let me see what you have, and you order something from each one of them.
That's what I do everywhere I go.
But if you don't get it, if you don't get it when you see it, like I wanted a piece of cheesecake from the Jazzy Treats. Somebody bought it, and then she was out. Oh. I know. I kept saying, I'll be back.
Any questions for the mayor?
Oh, one more thing, I'm sorry, I apologize. The tree lighting on the 27th at Perkins. From what I understand, a couple of the students from the high school or from the band are supposed to come play. I understand, I believe it's St. Margaret Mary their choir will be there singing. I heard Santa Claus is supposed to show up, but I'm not sure how that'll work out. So if you can make it, 5:30 on the 27th at Perkins. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, city administrator's report. Evening, Mr. Mosby.
Good evening, Mr. President. I, too, would like to congratulate everyone who won election or re-election to council. But, Mr. President, if you don't mind, I would like to reserve my comments until I understand that there's supposed to be discussion regarding the budget and new business, so I would like to reserve my comments for them.
Thank you, sir. right, next up, Law Director's report. He is not with us this evening. Bring us the Finance Director's report. We do not have a Finance Director here. So we will go to call of members, starting with Ms. Dukestein.
No comment tonight.
Ms. Blythe?
No comment.
Ms. Underwood?
No comment.
Mr. Miller Novak?
I too would like to congratulate everybody who won re-election. It was tense. I lost a few bets. I didn't think a few of you would pull it off. It was. So I was impressed. For people in the audience, they were some uncontested elections. So, I mean, it was a bad bet. So, but congratulations, nonetheless, and thank you for doing it. I think as much as that's kind of a joke, but at the end of the day, when you have four-term spots open and they're uncontested, it's easy to kind of joke about it like I just did flippantly, but I think you have to realize that the people that decided to run for office and sacrificed well, she was contested, right? Yeah.
Your neighbor.
Oh, yeah, him too, that's right, he was uncontested as well. So 5 of you, but nonetheless, I mean, I think it means a lot. I think that what that tells is that as much as you see a lot of comments about people in local government and things like that, it's a sacrifice, and this year is apparently one that not many people were interested in even attempting to make. So thank you for everybody who did run for office, and even the contested write-in candidate over there, which is even more difficult, quite frankly, to run as a write-in candidate. Thanks for sacrificing your time and being willing to be here, because it'd be really weird if we didn't have enough people to run for office. So thanks for everyone to do that.
Should we start chanting 4 more years?
So bizarre that no one ran, but thank you, everybody. I do appreciate it.
Ms. Zorb?
After all that, I have no comment.
Ms. DeWald?
I'd like to echo the comments too about the election. Mr. Miller Novak is right. And Ms. Underwood has said this a million times. It's a labor of love. When my friends found out that I was looking to be seated again, they're like, when are you going to stop? And I said, I don't know. You just get addicted to this stuff. You know, you can maybe make a difference. And anyway, congratulations to everybody. And I'm going to bring up a few things and comment in our comments, because I'm afraid new business is going to be too long. So I have the clerk's computer yet, Mr. Mosby, that I need to turn over to you because it would go to the new clerk. Or when you, never mind. Also, I wanted to know what have we moved forward on the Mary Carol Minky issue with the rubbish and trash and the damage in her yard?
I have a phone call into the city prosecutor so that I can discuss that matter with him.
Okay. And then the other thing that I'd like to address to, I guess, council, and it's going to fall on your shoulders again, Mr. Mosby, I'm sorry. I keep wanting to say Drano, but it's the Walter Drain, the books that we get. So there's still 2 unopened packages back there. I asked them, do we get charged per book that they send? And they said, no, it's by the ordinance, how much they use in ordinances. So if you could find out from our department heads who still takes these, obviously not everybody.
Yeah, I already have. In fact, I know that the police department, they do. I took one over there to them already. Public Works doesn't use one. And then the only one that would possibly be left would be fire, but they're yeah.
And,
so
and
that
I
would
spoke
really
with Brian about this. It just came up a couple of months ago when I was talking to him about a code. So do I have the authority then to call, I'm gonna call him Drano again,
Walter Drain.
to let them know that we only, or do you want to leave that, maybe I should leave it in your hands so that the secretary can tell them how many books we actually need?
No, I mean, so that is a good question,
So
but I
we
know
need-
that,
we
I
need
know
a
that we
copy.
need at least the one for the police department. We do have one here, although most people access the code online.
Exactly.
So, yes, I can talk to you about that later to kind of determine what's going to be the best number of, copies that we.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms. Nichols.
Ms. DeWalt, I can't recall or remember, how many do they send you?
I believe it was 6.
Okay.
So we have 2 left over. We need one. Police needs one, so there's just one other set. Could be the front office
It
that
is.
has one.
One goes there.
Right.
So in case someone comes, they don't have to access you guys' copies.
Right.
It's
And-
one that should be over there.
Right, and the only minor concern that I had about it was that it would just save paper. It's not gonna save us a daggone dime, which I was hoping it would, but it's not. So,
I
and
know
then, to-
one went back here and one went over there, the other went to the police.
right. And then just to end it all, I'd like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. I know for you, Ms. Dukestein, it might be difficult just coming off of being so ill, but, Thanksgiving's a big deal in our household, so I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and please be safe. And I guess eat all you want. It's a free day.
Free for what?
Free food.
Ms. Anderson.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Ms. Tuxine for taking the minutes last week. I took minutes yesterday at our meeting and I did not do very well. So I really give you props because it's not as easy as it looks. I also just want to say, I know I said this last week, but I just wanted to say congratulations to the Fire Chief Fells. I was more than ecstatic to see that his levy passed, and especially with all the work that I know that he put into it, and I know that him and all the people who work for him are extremely honest and wonderful people. And my mom and I were so excited that we actually drove around the night of the election and counted all of the votes on all of the doors and did our own math, and then looked up the absentee ballot votes, and then looked up the early voting votes, and made sure that we were right before we let people know that the fire levy passed. So I just hope that everybody knows how proud I am of the fire department and how proud I am to live in Orculcho with such a wonderful fire chief. So thank you so much, Chief Fells, for all you do, and all of the firefighters as well. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. So next up is remarks from the audience. If you wish to address council, please take the lectern. Start with your name and address, please.
My name is Lily M. White. I have been a resident of North College Hill since 2012. I am a regular voter and voted for everyone on the seat this last election. My first residence was 6545 Hamilton Avenue. I lived there with my partner, Daniel Neal, until his death on 2017, in which I was evicted and all my personal belongings were put out on the lawn. I have gone through ID theft, battling still ID theft with all my personal information. I don't know where it's at. I moved to 6921 Pin Oak Drive, apartment 1, about in 2019, and I was there until just here recently. I'm homeless right now. I've seen North College Hill come alive on one end and then dissipate on another end. I'm very upset because I love North College Hill. At 6545 Hamilton, when I was there, I believe that I was a beacon to the North College Hill community. Most people would stop and say how beautiful the house was. Dan and I put a lot into the house, and it was very welcoming for the North College Hill community. The same thing I do with where I was at now, the 6921 Pin Oak Drive. I have spoken to the city leaders. I was here when Maureen, we talked, Mary Jo, and I talked to David Mann. I've been down to city council. I've done a number of things, and now this is the conclusion. I'm not sure on what's going to happen, but I did want to come. This is the first time that I've been able to even really address the new mayor. And I did speak with Mr. Mosby, but I did not speak directly to him. It was a very turbulent time. We were going through the COVID, and so many things had stopped completely. We are up and going again, and I just want to say I am interested in a new beginning, and I don't know where that's going to lead, but for right now, I'm just a big question mark. So I'm here to say that I am a North College Hill citizen and voter, and I have been regular through the council and everything. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that will bring us to tonight's legislation. We have a first reading, Resolution 30-2021, resolution to certify assessments to the county auditor for placement on the tax duplicate. And I believe, I forgot, Mr. Mosby corrected me, this actually is for nuisance, not tall grass and trash removal. So this should have been revised as well. So I apologize for not getting that changed.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
do you have any more information about what the nuisance it is?
I do not. I would assume Mr. Mosby does. I'd like to ask him when he comes back.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
do we just want to go on and then we can come
Yeah,
back to it?
we come back to this. All right.
Mr. President,
Ms. Orb?
the first whereas says abate nuisances. Or am I looking at the wrong one?
I'm talking about here on my agenda. I did not change it.
Sorry.
Yes, that's the mistake.
Okay, my bad.
Why is that a controversy? I mean, can't we just, what really matters is what's on the legislation itself, not necessarily what the agenda calls it.
Well, I think that's what she's saying. She was saying it says nuisances. I was just
Yeah.
referencing the fact that I meant to change this to say that.
All right, well, we don't need to come back to it then, but I
No.
guess Ron's back
Alright.
now, so I guess we can ask him whatever we wanted to.
Ms. Underwood had a question, Mr. Mosby.
Actually, never mind, don't worry about it. We can go past it, it's fine.
I'm sorry, what was Ms. Underwood's suggestion?
She was not making any suggestion.
It's only this
Correct.
part.
Okay,
So-
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald?
I would like to take notice, Section 1, where it says the following assessments approved by the city, that is left blank. We need to have that filled in before it's approved. And generally, it says, it just reflects on itself. It should reflect and say resolution number 30, 2021.
Correct. I also missed that. It will be corrected. Thank you for pointing that out.
You're welcome. The perils of being a clerk.
I am not a clerk. That's the
No, I
problem.
was.
All right, third reading, Resolution 29-2021, resolution to certify assessments to the county auditor for placement on the tax duplicate, tall grass, and trash removal.
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald,
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 29, 2021.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson.
I'll second that.
Motion by Ms. DeWald, second by Ms. Anderson. To adopt Resolution 29-2021. Any discussion? I'll call the roll. Ms. Dukes-Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Blythe?
Abstain.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. Miller-Novak?
Yes.
Ms. Zorb?
Yes.
Ms. DeWald?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 with an abstention. Next is third reading, Ordinance 7, 2021, an ordinance making additional appropriations.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion we adopt.
Motion by Ms. Zorb to adopt Ordinance 7, 2021.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
I'll second that.
Motion by Ms. Zorb, second by Ms. Anderson to adopt Ordinance 7, 2021. Any discussion? I'll call the roll. Ms. Dukes-Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Blythe?
Abstain.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. Miller-Novak?
Yes.
Ms. Zorb?
Yes.
Ms. DeWald?
No.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1 with an abstention. And we have third reading Ordinance 8, 2021, an ordinance authorizing an agreement between the City of North College Hill and the Board of Hamilton County Commissioners relative to the improvement of Hamilton Avenue.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller-Novak.
I move that we adopt Ordinance 8, 2021.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Miller-Novak, second by Ms. Underwood to adopt Ordinance 8, 2021. Discussion? I'll call the roll. Ms. Dukes-Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Blythe?
Abstain.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. Miller-Novak?
Yes.
Ms. Zorb?
Yes.
Ms. DeWald?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 with an abstention. Next item on the agenda is further remarks from the audience as it pertains to legislation.
You guys got anything?
You're on the spot. He pointed at himself.
Yeah. All right. I'll let you off the hook today.
All right,
Gotta sign in next time.
that'll take us to old business.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
I apologize. I've been meaning to bring this up the last couple meetings, and I keep forgetting. So I have a little post-it here to remind me tonight. Thank you.
Good job.
Ms. Dewald, yes. Kind of to give you your relief, I was wondering if anyone had been successful at recruiting anyone to be our clerk. So I have found someone who has agreed. It's Christian Hedger, speaking of someone who resigned. So his resume would be, he's served on city council, he has worked for the city of Cincinnati, and he's conscientious, and computer literate.
Is he? I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Mr. Miller-Novak?
No Christian. I like him. I mean,
Does he doesn't live here anymore, right? Not that
Clerk
that matters.
position does not have to,
I know that.
but no, he does not.
Okay. Sounds neat. I'm surprised that he wants to do it, but I'd think out loud. Neat.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Christian Hedger as our new clerk of council.
Mr. President? Sorry, I just have a question.
Mhm.
When would he, when would his position start?
As soon as we pass this motion.
Just busting through the door, starts doing it.
He
I
does
was
not
just
have a
Don't think it
cape.
happens that quick.
I was just curious, that's all. I don't have any objection or anything, I was just curious.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak.
what do we pay our clerk of council?
Same as we get.
Doesn't seem like enough.
Why does he want to do it?
Are we
be
trying to
honest.
talk him out of this, or what are we doing here?
Don't look against.
I'm just saying, yeah, no, I mean,
So, Mr.
geez.
President.
I mean, yeah, did anybody second yet?
No?
Mr. President, no, because there's conversation.
Ms. DeWald?
I do want to say that I know Christian Hedger, and he loved being here. He loved doing this. He loved North College Hill. Their opportunity to move out was an opportunity that nobody could turn down. Otherwise, he'd still be here.
I need a second to the motion.
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald?
I second that motion.
Any other discussion? All right, motion by Ms. Zorb, second by Ms. DeWald to appoint Christian Hedger as clerk of council, effective ASA now. I mean, T.
I said yesterday.
Yeah. All right, I'll call the roll. Ms. Dukestein?
Yes.
Ms. Blythe?
Abstain.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak?
Yeah.
Ms. Zorb?
Yes.
Ms. DeWald?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
And if I had to vote to break the tie, I'd say yes too. Motion passes 6-0 with an abstention.
All right, cool. Well, hey, Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak.
I'll just blurt out, thanks for doing that,
Sure.
lining that up. That's a good find. Surprised. I hope
I was
none of my
surprised when he
questions
said
were,
yes.
interpreted as reservation. I'm just shocked and surprised pleasantly. It sounds great. Thanks for setting that up.
Make sure you tell him he's got it before he sees this movie.
Yeah.
He sees this movie. I thought you said the smoothie. I'm like,
Smoothie.
smoothie.
Ms. DeWald calls them movies.
That
cool.
came from Mr. O'Shea.
Jim O'Shea.
Yeah,
Any other old business?
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
thank you.
just really quickly, I don't want to pressure you at all, but I was just wondering if you guys had any, or if you and Superintendent Blaylock had any updates on the commission at all, for the Recreation Commission?
He has not gotten back with me, but I will, I will ask him again tomorrow.
No worries.
We
I
had
meant
a
to email
conversation-
about it, and I totally forgot, so
No,
it's kind of on me.
we had a conversation so long ago,
Right.
and, we have not met with the youth, why can't I get the acronym right? Unified Progressive Committee, or,
Unified Progress Committee.
yeah. So I will ask him tomorrow.
No worries, thank you. That's all.
Any other old business?
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak?
since we're done with old business and we're about to approach new business, and I know that we're gonna talk about the budget, and I know that's going to be profuse, I would like to take a recess, 5 minutes, so we can use the restroom before the intermission, whatever you wanna call it.
Did you
So
say
I
motion?
move we take a recess for
Mr. President, I'll second that.
5 minutes or so.
All right, motion by Mr. Miller Novak with a second by Ms. Zorb to take a recess, at which point we will come back at, let's just take 10. That way everybody has enough time. So we'll come back at, is that all right? Can I change your motion to 10 minutes?
It was a recess. I said 5 minutes or so.
Okay. Ms. Dukestein?
Yes.
Ms. Blythe?
Abstain.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak?
Yes.
Ms. Zorb?
Yes.
Ms. DeWald?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 with an abstention as we are under recess.
So did you find it?
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
do we re-adjourn or reconvene?
Resume.
I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
Motion by Ms. Underwood, second by Ms. Zorb to reconvene our meeting. I'll call the roll. Ms. Dukes Dean?
Present.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Recess got her. Ms. Blythe?
Abstain.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak?
Yes.
Ms. Zorb?
Yep.
Ms. DeWald?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes. Sorry, yes.
Passes 6-0 with an abstention. We are back in session. And new business.
Oh, God bless you.
Bless you. Bless you.
Right.
What is with you sneezers?
I don't know, but I'm on your side of them.
Bless you.
It's horrible.
It's the kids.
That's, yeah. Mr. President, I can start out if
Go ahead, Ms.
you don't
Anderson.
mind. Mine is a real softball for you. 'Cause I'm just curious. Since we don't have the pool anymore, why is that section still included in the budget?
It's the very last page.
No, it's on the, no, it's on the.
Third
one,
page
two.
on the bottom is where it
It's
starts.
on the third, yeah. And I'm not trying to say anything about it.
That one.
I'm just seriously curious of why it's still included. If anybody knows.
Well, the good news is we're not spending money on the pool that doesn't exist any
I-
longer.
I mean, not to belabor, I think what you may be asking, and just for background, each of these lines is an appropriation. Once we put that appropriation into CMI, it's basically kind of a permanent appropriation. So it doesn't, we don't just delete it, it stays in there.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak?
I mean, out of curiosity, what's it? I mean, right now, it seems like it'd be pointless busy work in a sense, but the money that's appropriated for the splash pad, I mean, like within the future, would we just be able to use this section as like the budget information for the splash pad after it's up and running?
I apologize, Mr. Miller, I'm not quite sure I understand your question.
Well, it's just because we once put this in here, right?
Right.
And I understand your point. It's kind of like, once you do it and was appropriated once, it's kind of like in the system as a line item.
Correct.
And then when you don't appropriate any money, it's just still there. It's just a zero. But
Right.
couldn't we use it, the section for the splash pad in terms of the budget? Because it's kind of the same thing. It's recreation pool. It'd just be recreation pool, meaning splash pad.
I mean, technically, I suppose that you could. You probably noticed, and I think I discussed that with you earlier, we actually put it under the recreation department to be a function of recreation, since it is part of the parks.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
and that appropriated money is under contracted services?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just to save room on the budget, so that way we don't have like a half of a page of zeros. I feel like it makes sense to just move that money there. Plus, that way we can see more specifically what, the money's going to. So that way if we have any questions, they can be more specific questions, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's a suggestion that would make your life easier as well. Mr. or Ms. B.
Is it, I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Mr. Miller Novak?
Sorry, because this is a council meeting. We should still probably respect the rules. And those apply to me as well. So I guess we're calling it contracted services, obviously, because we'd be contracting with people to build it, right?
Correct, yes.
So this amount that's appropriated is appropriated to just kind of like build the thing, hire the
Correct.
necessarily designers and things like that?
It would include the design as part of that, yes.
And then that has nothing to do with the further maintenance, correct?
As far as ongoing maintenance, it is not initially included in there, no. That would have to be, once we kind of get an idea of what that would be, because we actually were not sure, because a lot of it is based on a lot of different things, the size of the splash pad.
Right.
Once we get an idea of that, then we can estimate about what the cost is going to be for annual maintenance.
And I know I always say this, so I don't want to be contradictory to myself. I understand that a budget's a fluid thing, right? And we can move money later on.
Correct.
It's just, I guess my concern is just out of the gate. Like, I'm assuming that we're going to have a goal to have this thing open this summer, right? If we're going to do
Not
it.
the summer of 2022. We would plan to open it 2023.
So we'd
We would
start.
be completed 2022.
So the construction would take that long, and if we're appropriating this money and we're kind of paying, they would maybe like break ground this like summer and then finish
Correct.
it, and
Correct, because
then it'd be done and we'd cut the ribbon and then we'd have to close it down the next day, kind
No.
of thing.
not quite, but not quite.
Okay.
But again, I've talked to the engineers about this. There are several things that we have to take into consideration. It's not just putting up a splash pad. We have to look at parking. We've got to look at ingress and egress and access to water lines. And there are several things that we have to look at. So I needed to make sure that logistically we have everything in order before we just start saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. So we just started that last week.
Okay.
If the stars align perfectly and we're able to get the RFP out and we can get, a contractor in and we can get it done fairly quickly, then, that would be great to be able to do it. But, again, just kind of looking at some of the things that we've discussed and some of the issues that have been coming up, I just want to make sure that we have all of our bases covered.
Okay, so it is going to go out for bid then, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for answering my questions.
Mr. President.
Mr. Mosby.
I do have a statement, and I would like to just state this before any further discussion, if that would be all right with you.
I'm fine with that.
So thank you, Mr. President. When I was first appointed to the position of city administrator by then Mayor Mason, I believe I was selected because of my extensive government experience. I had previously served as the assistant comptroller of the Naval Air Engineering Center in Lakehurst, New Jersey, which operated with a $100 million annual budget. I served as the dispersing officer aboard the USS Suribachi, where I managed the retail and dispersing operations. Upon returning to Cincinnati, I was asked to serve as a chief of staff for 3 different members of Cincinnati City Council, whose cities the council members oversaw a $2 billion budget. After leaving the city of Cincinnati, I was appointed as the public information officer for the Ohio Department of Transportation, District 8, which covers a 7-county area in southwestern Ohio. I was subsequently hired by Walmart to be a senior manager of public affairs for the state of Ohio, which included 146 stores. I was responsible for municipal governments, working with municipal governments to approve building of new stores throughout the state. I also previously served as a member of North College Hill City Council, and I was a board member of the Southwest Ohio Regional Transit Authority. In short, I came equipped for the job. One of the most challenging tasks I encountered after working here less than 6 months was to inform the mayor, council, and department heads that projected revenues had been overstated by $250,000. Consequently, I had to slash the police and fire department budgets by $250,000 in order to ensure that we balance at the end of the year. The following year, we were devastated by COVID-19. Nevertheless, we were able to successfully navigate those uncharted waters without one layoff. Currently, we're discussing the 2022 budget, a copy of which you have before you. Several issues have been raised, including the issue of CARES Act spending. I would like to remind council that in July of 2020, Resolution 11-2020 was passed, which stated that council affirms that all funds received from the County Coronavirus Relief Distribution Fund be expended only to cover costs of the city consistent with the requirements of Section 5001 of the CARES Act. As city administrator, I have acted in accordance with the resolution, including specific requests from council for the purchase of laptops and the smart TV. Now, some members of council have requested a more detailed explanation of the salaries paid to our public works employees from the CARES Act funds. The explanation is simply this. Public works employees were instructed to keep track of the hours that were spent on COVID-19 related activities, and those wages were paid out of the CARES Act funds. I must be honest and tell council that asking for such detail regarding the expenses that were paid using the CARES Act funds feels very much like a witch hunt to me. All of my decisions have been made in accordance with the resolution council passed, as well as guidance provided from the state and federal governments. I provided an account of the spending per the request of Councilmember DeWald, yet it appears that such information was not sufficient. I had a discussion with our law director, who agreed that my actions were completely in accordance with the resolution. Finally, as I stated in my previous correspondence to you, the CARES Act funding must be exhausted by December the 31st of this year. I also informed council that I would be applying those funds to police and fire payrolls, which would result in having additional monies available in our general fund to carry over for 2022. Finally, I also wanted to take a moment to explain a very important financial benefit that we receive as a result of passing the fire levy. Because we can now use the additional levy funds to pay for salaries of our full-time firefighters, $200,000 has been made available in our general fund for other purposes, some of which have been included in the proposed budget you have before you. Over a 5-year period of the levy, that equates to $1 million that can be used for other purposes, including devoting some funds to economic development in our city, as well as adding funds for recreation. I have done my best as administrator to ensure that our city is on solid financial footing, and the result is the budget that you have before you. So I would ask that, with few exceptions, council pass the budget so that I may continue to do the work to make our city a great place to live and work. Now, Mr. President, I would like to address, because I did receive correspondence from Council Member Anderson that had some very specific questions that I'm more than willing to answer because they were brought up. And although some of them may not be directly related to the budget, but if it helps council, that's fine. So one was, what specifically was bought under the line item Public Works Supplies and Activities? I believe that was for the CARES Act funding. And again, as I mentioned, that was those were salaries that were used, salaries and wages that were used to pay for our public works employees that were actually doing COVID-19 work. The second question was, can we use the remaining money to pay for a unified electronic filing system and/or Microsoft and update of the website? The short answer is yes. However, I would not recommend it. And the reason I would not is because if we did, we would have to go out to bid for this. We would need to create an RFP. We would need to be able to contract with someone. We would have to be able to have all the work finished and then pay before the end of the year, because the funds have to be expended by that time. I would honestly recommend to council that we use the funds to pay for salaries that have been paid previously out of the general fund. We can reimburse the general fund. That money could then be used in 2022 to pay for either one of those, electronic filing system or an update of the website. The third question was, what is the general fund carryover from 2021 to 2022? That should be on the list that I gave you, the summary that I gave you, sent to you by email earlier today. That carryover balance is as of November the 5th, I believe. So it will probably fluctuate somewhat, but that is what we're starting with right now. And then the final question was, are we using CARES money to pay salaries? The answer would be, of course, then yes. So So, Mr. President, that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mosby. Ms. Anderson?
Sorry, I'm not sure if anybody else is having this problem. I can't see the numbers on the 2022 fund summary that was sent to us. They're just blank X's in each of the columns.
You may have to widen the
Yeah, scroll it over.
column.
I mean, like even when I click on the X, it's still,
Here, 2 copies.
okay, thank you. And then the other thing I was gonna say, just, oh, she did, thank you, sorry. Just to clarify, I did send you that email, but that was from all of us, that was just the discussion from yesterday's meeting, those weren't my specific questions. I
No,
just,
I wasn't saying, I said I got the correspondence from you. That's all I said.
right, okay, I just wanted to make that clear, that wasn't just me throwing a bunch of questions at you all at once, I just wanted to make that clear, but, either way, also, I hope that nothing I have asked has come across like a witch hunt. I mean, I'm a 22-year-old who still has her mom help her take care of her finances. So I have a lot of questions when it comes to finances. And most of mine come from pure ignorance that I'm not sure what a lot of stuff on the budget means. So if anything I have said has come across as a witch hunt, I really do not mean it that way. I just truly don't know what something like supplies and activities would include on a budget. So that's the only point I wanted to make. I hope I didn't offend you by seeming like a witch hunt, but I hope that if I did, that you would feel free to come and talk to me. I'd love to fix my language to help everybody feel more comfortable. But anyway, sorry, that's all I have.
Mr. President.
Mr. Miller Novak?
Okay, so
Well, here
I-
we go.
I guess if I could talk about the budget for a second. I don't have many questions about it. I'm not an auditor, and while I don't have my mom helping me with my finances at my law firm, we have a managing partner that helps us with our finances, so.
So you get it.
I get what you're saying, yeah, no, I'm picking up what you're laying down. But the one question I have, and I heard you mention economic development, I know we've talked a lot, so I want to be transparent about that in the sense that I've always told you that as a council member, the one thing that bothers me a lot is that we never seem to have money to invest in an economic developer, whether it's a person that works for us or whether we contract with a third-party company to do it. And I personally have a lot of optimism right now. I mean, I know we've got the bus thing, hopefully gonna happen, right? And that's like pretty much a done deal. And I think, when I think we're in the dead center in the smack dab middle of Hamilton County, and I think of a bus center going there, I think of medical testing facilities, or, what a great place and how that would correspond, how businesses could build off that. I think of this splash pad, which you've just broken my heart and told me I can't run through until the year 2023. But nonetheless, it's going to be coming, and that's good news. And we're having a comprehensive plan done, which we've invested good money in, which I'm glad we all voted to do that. That was important, so we could, we're investing in some professional people giving us a vision on how to develop. My concern, and I always said it, for me, this is about policy and priorities. This is not about auditing to me. This is not about going through everything and questioning everything, because again, I've got a managing partner in our partners' meetings that tells us how to do this. So I don't see money we are investing. Like, I'd like to see a priority in here. Like, I'd like to see if you're pointing to something that says, hey, this is money I could use. If you appropriate this money in this line item, I can use that to hire an economic developer or contract with a third-party firm. I know you'd have to come to us and we'd have to pass a resolution for you to enter into that contract, but I'd like to see us commit in our budget to finally start investing in economic development. We haven't had an economic developer in this city for a long time. I don't know, like 2010 or something, you know? It's been 11 years, and look on the strip, you can tell, right? And you have figured out, you know, I know you worked with people, you got the bus thing, and it is economic development, but you can't run departments and I don't think do the right job as things start picking up to get out there and meet with enough developers. You don't have that network, right? And that's why you hire economic developers. And I would like to see us commit in our budget that we're finally going to do it, you know?
Mr. President.
How we do it.
Mr. Mosby?
So, Mr. Miller-Novak, I think that there would be one of two ways. Again, this is my recommendation to council, and of course, council may adjust it however they like. There, in the budget that you see, you also notice that there is some carryover money that would be available. I don't believe that even if we, I mean, to be honest with you, based on what you were just saying, even if council decided to go ahead and put money in there for that, it probably wouldn't be more than 50,000 for that. If we were going to hire someone, even contracting with someone, I probably wouldn't suggest anything more than that. So that would be one way. The other way is, of course, you can, as you pointed out, you could make certain adjustments in some of the different departments, and perhaps accumulate that money, and put it into another area, in which case you would be basically talking about economic development. So if you were asking me which one, the easiest way would just be to take 50,000 from the carryover, but
Where
again,
is
that
the
was up to you.
carryover, Ron?
So it's on the summary page. If you look on the summary page, in the general fund, which is the single page that Mrs. Orb has, at the top, you'll see, it talks about, now, by the time we use the CARES Act funds, what you'd have to actually do then is add that money back into the carryover, because basically what would be happening is we're going to be replacing the money.
So
back
that's not
into-
accounted for in here.
Correct. You don't
So the
see it, you don't
250
see it in there,
The
correct,
$250,000 you plan on using in CARES Act money on salaries
correct.
is not reflected in here. So when you actually apply those funds to those salaries,
It results in a net gain in the general fund.
okay, thank you for explaining that. So where's the carryover on this thing? So
At
can
the
you-
top of the page, it says general fund, and then you see it says beginning fund, and then you see receipts and expenditures, and then it says ending balance.
So the I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Ms. Anderson?
Sorry, so the 339,250 is the carryover?
Correct.
Okay,
This is
thank you.
more than one. You want me to pass this down? Is that what you're doing?
Mr. President,
Ms. Blythe?
Borrow this one.
I had
Yeah.
just a couple of questions. I'm a little bit confused, Mr. Mosby. I think it was less than 2 weeks ago, you were asking council if we had suggestions for extra money in the funds. I'm assuming now, is that the Recovery Act that you were asking us
Oh,
about?
So, yes, that's a good question, and I do want to
Yeah,
make sure
'cause I'm
the council.
confused about
Right,
that,
so,
yeah.
so we need to make a distinction. The CARES Act funds were funds that were given to us from the government, basically. But those funds had to be specifically used for coronavirus support, which would mean everything from, in this case, we could use them for salaries for first responders, cleaning items, anything that was related to it. So security system that we put on the door. It was COVID-related. So the bathrooms, because we needed decent bathrooms and hot water, COVID-related. So we used the COVID funding for that. That funding has to be used by the end of the year. That's that roughly $255,000 that you see. The Recovery Act funds are different. They are funds that were basically promised to cities as a result of basically, rejuvenating, if you will, their operational budget, right? So initially, we were supposed to get approximately $1.9 million. By the time they got finished, it got cut in half. And so what happened was we got $486,000 this year, and we're anticipated to get $486,000 next year. So yes, that funding was what I asked council about and how they wanted to do it. Now, if you remember, part of the ordinance was, I put that money. Basically, we had to adjust our anticipated revenues, and I had to send that to the county so that we would be able to show that. But that was the money. You are correct.
Okay,
that we were
so
looking at.
now, are you saying that we as council, if we get together, we have approximately $50,000 that if we want to do some city improvements, whatever we think of, is that what you're saying, $50,000 through the Recovery Act for council?
I was not speaking
give you
specifically of the Recovery
suggestions?
Act funds for that, but what I was telling Mr. Miller Novak was if there were a couple of ways in order to incorporate the $50,000 in, and I understood what he was saying, which is once it's put in there, that means it's a priority. And he's correct. If you pass a budget that says $50,000 for an economic development officer, that's what I have to hire. So I understand what he's saying. When it comes to that, where that $50,000 comes from, that has to be a decision that would be made by council.
I just have two more quick questions. Do we have to provide parking for the future splash pad? Do we have to have some type of designated parking for that?
Yes, we should, because obviously you're going to have people who would be coming in, and you want to make sure that parking is available. I won't go into the details about it right now, but we were looking at how many spaces might be necessary and that kind of thing. So,
Okay.
but yes, we need to have parking.
And then last question, within that, what part of the account were you going to designate for the website upgrade, I guess, next year? What part of?
If the COVID funds or the CARES Act funds are used for the salaries, then basically what that does is replaces and puts an additional $255,000 into our general fund. So a portion of that could be used next year, because that would be part of the carryover, and a portion of that could be used next year for the website, if that was the case.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Underwood, you were next.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would just like to say that over the last almost 2 years, and I'm going to call this Mr. Mosby's manifesto, and I think he knows that I'm joking, but he also knows that I respect him very much. We don't always agree, but typically when I have a disagreement with Mr. Mosby or if I have a question, I call him on his cell phone first thing in the morning, and he'll call me back. And he always answers my questions. He's always kind, even though maybe I didn't always deserve it, because I don't know that I even had the right to ask some of the questions I was asking. And as I took a closer look at our, I'm sorry, losing my terminology, our charter, and I looked at city administrator and what your powers and duties are, I realized that there are several things that I've asked you about that you absolutely did not have to answer. And I appreciate the fact that you did. And I apologize if, I don't think that I've done or said anything, or I hope I didn't, but I apologize if I did, because that's not what this is supposed to be about. We're supposed to be about making the city better. But as I read the charter, it says that your job is to, you are supposed to do the budget, prepare and submit to council the annual budget, and be responsible for its administration after adoption. And I don't believe that it's within our purview, at least according to Mr. Dieters, who, is kind of not here, and, apparently, if it comes from him, it's more valid, but it's not within our purview to go line by line or ask questions or whatever it is. I think Mr. Miller Novak explained to me that we're supposed to set priorities or whatever. So all I'm saying to you is that I appreciate the fact that over the last year and a half, you have answered the phone when I called and answered my questions and even allowed me to participate in some things that I had no right to participate in. I appreciate you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underwood. Ms. Zorb, you're next.
Hi, I have some questions about the budget. And can I address your, Matt, your comment about the economic developer? If I don't know how I feel about that, about hiring another human that we would have to sustain long-term on the salaries. But what I would like to ask is maybe we could wait until we get through this comprehensive plan and see what they suggest, what they recommend, and maybe play that card later down the road.
I mean,
Or maybe we put money in the bucket, but not necessarily hire someone, and then it's like in a holding pattern.
I mean, we have contrasting opinions. I mean, I guess it'll come down to a vote. I mean, my opinion is that I'm not talking about hiring a person that is on salary that we have a contract with. I'm talking about hiring a firm on an annual contract basis that could be done on a year-to-year thing. It's a third-party thing, and I know that we're going to have a comprehensive plan, but, an economic developer is somebody that you have to set out into the world, like, sometimes months, if not years, before you see actual, thing. You don't, wait till the comprehensive plan's done, then hire an economic developer, and then whammo, you got businesses. You need to start engaging with developers months ahead of time and create networks and start making them look here. This is a process that, kind of like RETA, right? Like when we switched to RETA, they told us, hey, it's going to take 2 to 3 years before you see the actual progress of our collections, because we have to implement this system and then identify things and do this. I mean, economic developers, they don't just get on. I mean, it's a lot about networking and reaching out to things. I mean, certainly, it's not like they're going to whammo develop our city in 4 months and then the comprehensive plan's going to say do something different. I think we need to get this person on the ground running now, and then while the comprehensive plan's being done, they will talk to our economic developer, and there can be some back and forth between whoever we hire to do economic development as well as this comprehensive plan, so you have some real-time cooperation between the two, so you're actually getting another person to add into the think tank, and then starting to go out and make some connections after they're talking to these people doing the comprehensive plan. It's just, I don't think we can afford to wait another year, and I think that's what we always do. We wait. We say next year, we say next year, we say next year, and then it doesn't get done, and then next year we say next year. We've got the money. There's $230,000. It's time to ante up and actually invest in bringing business into this city while we have the money to do it. Or we'll just have another excuse next year. That's my opinion, because I've heard it for the last 3 or 4.
Mr. President?
Ms. Zorb has the floor.
I am, unless it's on that particular topic? Okay, sorry, then you can go.
No, you're fine. No, I was actually
I'm
going
not
to.
giving up my spot.
You're fine. I was actually going to say what Mr. Miller Novak what he just said, but I wasn't as passionate about it as he was, so I'm glad he said it. But just to back him up and what he said, I think it would be really smart to hire them now, especially with the comprehensive plan. Like he said, it's just more brains coming together to grow something good. And if we have them come in after, especially, I feel like that would just be silly, because they're going to hand us this plan, and then we have this new guy coming in, and then we have to reteach him this whole, or girl or whoever, reteach them this whole plan that the comprehensive people came up with. So I agree. I think that if we have the money for it, we might as well do it now, and it would be smart to have everybody working in cohesion. Just to back it
Mr.
up.
President,
Alright.
you go.
Ms. Zorb has the floor.
So, I would like to talk about, the police budget. And, I have it as page 2. And I know this is gonna just rub Matt raw, but I'm gonna do it anyhow. So, equipment capital outlay. It looks like there's a brand-new line item for $75,000. Right underneath it, there's a debt service for $4,500. And if I look in the levy, there's more capital outlay of another $40,000. So there's like $115,000 in the police capital outlay that was never there before. Do we know what that's for?
Part of it is for the impound lot. The other part of capital outlay is for improvements to the police building.
So we're moving forward with the impound lot?
If you approve the budget, yes.
All right. And then when I look at code enforcement, on page 4,
Can you give us the number?
it's line 401, 101, 401.
Thank you.
They're leasing a new car?
Correct.
Mr. President.
Do they have an old car?
They have.
They have the Jeep, right?
Correct.
The Jeep doesn't run? I'm not sure what's going on.
We would be getting a new vehicle and we would turn the Jeep in.
And then why is the contracted services jumping from 25,000 to 60,000?
Because council has requested and actually stated that we need more code enforcement.
So we're getting another code enforcement officer?
Or we're getting someone with increased hours.
And then their supplies and materials jump from 500 to 15,000?
Yes?
What supplies and materials cost $15,000?
They have computer equipment, they have to send out letters, particularly sending out the letters that they have to do. If they have to go to court, which they may have to do, we have to account for that as well. So there's plenty of things that they would need to do in order to effectively carry out their duties as code enforcement.
Holy macaroni.
Would you prefer them not do it, Ms. Orr?
That is not at all what I said.
Okay.
That's a substantial jump, is my only point. $500 to 15,000. Did have more. Oh, I would like to add that Microsoft Suite to,
It's already in your council budget.
could you provide me the line item it would be under?
I don't remember the exact line item. There are supplies that are in your budget. In fact, there is, to be totally honest with you, there's an additional 18,000 to improve the council chambers here as well.
I think it's under line item 523400. Mr. President.
Mm.
Go on. Just
I'm not
jump
done.
on line.
All right. And then, when I get to the service department, their, equipment repair and replacement, was like $200, then it went to 5,000, now it's at 25,000. Do we know what that's about?
Service department is basically a restricted fund. So we want to make sure that they have enough maintenance for their equipment, all of their equipment, including the vehicles. So that's maintenance and for all of their equipment.
I just, in my mind, if you're jumping something $20,000, I would think that there was a plan behind it. So I guess I'm kind of asking if there's something in mind that needs to be done. Or this is just a placeholder of 20 grand?
It isn't a placeholder. It is to give them funds that they would be able to continue, make necessary repairs, replacements if necessary for them. And I'm showing it in the budget so that we don't have to come back 3 months into 2022 and say, oh, we have something that was coming up and we needed to or add money for that. I want to make sure that we have a maintenance program that will be able to maintain all of our equipment on a regular basis.
Mr.
I
President?
think those are all the ones I have for now,
Oh,
You're good, Ms.
she's
Orr?
next.
for the moment.
Ms. Blythe was next, and then Ms. Anderson.
I just wanted to make a note that, I feel like I have a different view about, what, Mr. Novak just said. To me, if we've spent, close to $170,000 on a new comprehensive plan, I would rather give them a chance and see what they can do for us and what suggestions they have. I don't mind, like holding the money over for future use, but I just feel like there's a lot of money invested in the comprehensive plan, and I'd like to see what they're gonna do and what their suggestions are for economic growth, before we hire a separate person for economic growth. I just feel like one thing at a time. What do they have to say? What are their suggestions? And I just feel that way because if we've spent all this money on this plan, and then we have this second person come in, and per se, they clash with them or they don't agree. So I feel like you should give the people, I didn't vote for them, but the people that we selected a chance to see what ideas and how they bring us together in meetings and in the community, and then move forward. I mean, I know things take a long time, but I don't see just rushing and jumping and throwing a whole bunch of things into the pot. But that's just my opinion about the economic growth. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. Mosby?
Ms. Blythe, if I may, first of all, I certainly respect your opinion. I would like to just give you a couple of things to consider. Mr. Miller Novak also brought up the transit center, which of course everyone knows I'm excited about that. However, I would like to point out that to his credit, that took 2 years to bring to fruition, and we will not see actually the money until 2024, 2025. So when you start to put those things together, that's a 6-year effort that it took for that. And to his point, economic development, just to be totally honest, really is about relationships. I sat, as I mentioned in my statement, I sat as a chief of staff for 3 different members of city council, and I watched some major development deals occur. Those things take a long time. They take a long time. And you do have to invest money up front. The developer has to invest money up front. In this case, if we wanted to have someone to begin to make those connections, we would need to invest some money up front. Again, I'm only the administrator, so but I'm trying to give you at least some feedback that you would be able to consider. It does not happen overnight by any means. And it takes a lot of work in order to bring a lot of those projects to fruition. Now, I will admit that we don't have the land area that, you know, Cincinnati has. And so the deals that they were doing were multi-million-dollar deals. However, there are two pieces of land, quite frankly, and this is no secret. There are two pieces of land that everybody knows about. One is what we call the Roses parking lot, and then the second is what was formerly known as Beach Knoll. If we are going to do something with that, that's going to take a lot of work.
Okay.
And because both of those pieces of property are private property.
Yeah, that's, because I thought you were talking about, I didn't realize it was actually land development too. I thought
Yes.
it was hiring someone for their ideas, and I'm thinking, we're already gonna get ideas, but you're saying that ideas overlapping and getting the thing moving forward is better.
Well, it's the concept to the deal to actual development. I mean,
Okay.
it takes all three.
Mr.
So you're
President.
talking about land development. Okay, I wasn't.
It's
I
all
wasn't
part
clear
of
on
it is
that.
what I think is a point that I'm making.
Okay,
I
okay.
had Ms. Anderson next.
I feel like what Matt's about to say is what I'm about to say, so, but I know that Arias was after me, so I'll just go ahead. I've talked a lot.
I just want to just clarify something, because it just, to me, Ms. Blythe, I think maybe you don't understand what an economic developer does as opposed to a comprehensive plan. Like, a comprehensive plan is just an idea think tank, ultimately, that gives you a set of goals. An economic developer is like a doer, right? Like, this comprehensive plan, you have to understand, they're not going to contact developers and make deals for us. They're not going to do any of the work. They're going to meet for a while. They're going to kind of give us a vision. But you need an economic developer to go out, shake hands, meet the relationships to get developers looking here. And it's not just business, it's also land.
Land.
And so is the comprehensive plan. That's not just business, that's also land and infrastructure.
Right.
And other things. It's comprehensive, that's why it's called comprehensive. It's not a land use plan, it's not a business development plan, it's not an economic development plan, it's all the things. And it's a vision. An economic developer is a doer, right? And again, like I said earlier, we would tell this economic developer that we're hiring because we're contracting with them, and we get to form our contractual relationship, say, hey, work with these people, right? While this is being done. But like Ron said, that's the problem. For every year you don't do it, you're a year behind. And right now we're 11 years behind. We're 11 years of waiting till next year. 11 years.
Does anybody have, well, my question is, we had a previous comprehensive plan. Was there a lot done with that we can recall that we improved?
No, the last one that we had was in 2008, and it has not been, nothing was done with it, which is the reason that I was, quite frankly, very glad the council said move forward, because they're actually supposed to be updated within 10 years. And just, I don't know, most of you on council may know this, but to be very clear, that comprehensive plan is vital for us in many ways to be eligible to receive funding, because they want to see what our comprehensive plan is.
Gotcha.
And if ours hasn't been updated for 13 years, it's a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Christine?
I'll be brief, but I wanted to just kind of reiterate the sentiments of Mr. Novak, because I think the thinking behind the comprehensive plan is that it replaces an economic developer, but it's more like the relationship between research and development, like an R&D team. They work together. You can't have one without the other. That's why many companies merge them, research and development, R&D. One works in tandem, not in succession or after another, but together, correlated. So I just wanted to just reiterate, or I guess explain that, so that we wouldn't be confused about why it is that we need to do it now together. Not necessarily is it for lack of not being disrespectful, it's not about an opinion of putting it one behind another. It's a necessity to keep them together for them to work appropriately.
Interweave it, okay.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
I just have a really quick question. What is community environment on page
That's interesting.
4? I just
So it's
don't-
interesting. I actually tried to make sure that that I put funding in there. That is about as close as we can get to community development. So in essence, Ms. Anderson, I was kind of thinking about your committee
Thank you.
and to make sure that there was funding in there for certain things, which could be everything from trees, beautification, just everything that would be pertaining to the environment or beautifying the city.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Man, my committee's getting all the love in this budget.
My budget's
Mr.
better.
President,
Let's
Ms.
pass
Zorb?
it.
so, I guess I just heard 2 new ideas that I wasn't aware of. So I would like to ask, are there any other new initiatives in this budget that aren't jumping out at council right now that we are not asking you about? I'm asking a very general question, an overview type question.
I mean, I don't know. I tried to make sure that everything that either the mayor or members of council had expressed a strong desire to see done. So I can say that that's what I tried to make sure was incorporated into the budget.
I guess I'm asking specifics though, because I didn't know to look for an impound lot, and I didn't know to look for recreation money, and I didn't know to look.
I mean, honestly, I don't know that I can answer your question that way. I know that to be honest, I know that the impound lot has been talked about for a long time, and there were reasons initially that we could not move forward with it. And
I
so,
didn't know those reasons had been resolved either, so I guess that would be my other.
well, I mean, COVID did a lot. We were actually going to try to do it in 2020, and
No, I thought there was like restrictions about access to the building, getting the tow trucks around. I mean, physical constraints.
No, I don't think that that was an issue at this particular point in time.
Okay, I guess I made that up.
No, it wasn't that.
Mr. President.
Ms. Anderson?
Yeah, I kind of have the same question, and I think maybe if I can say it a little bit differently, maybe if it'll help Mr. Mosby understand where we're coming from. I am so glad that there is money in there for environment beautification, but I mean, I wouldn't have known that there was money in there for that unless I had just asked that question just now. So not that we're accusing you of, trying to sneak anything anywhere at all. We're just curious if there's any big picture stuff that you have included in here that you would like us or the members of the city to know about. So that way we can know kind of what's coming up in the city and be informed council members. That's all.
Well, I mean, I did try to sneak a spa in there for myself.
We
Okay,
caught that.
I'm just kidding. No, I mean, honestly, there are a couple of things that have happened that have worked well for us. And I already indicated one of them, and that was the levy passing, which obviously freed up money out of the general fund that would have normally gone to the fire department for salaries and things like that. So that was one thing, and then when I saw that, I was trying to make sure that some of those funds would go around, to be able to use them in different departments. And part of the reason for that was because, quite frankly, let's all be honest, there just hasn't been any funding available. I feel, as I stated in my statement, I feel very good that A, we had no layoffs in 2020, and that B, we actually ended with a surplus. Whereas at the end of 2019, we were actually going to be in the red. However, because of that, though, we just weren't able to really do a lot of things. So, as Ms. Zorb was asking, the money, there are capital issues that are necessary for the safety building, for example. Some of those can be resolved as a result of the levy, at least for the fire portion. But the police portion, you know, we needed to put additional money in there in order to make sure that that they can do their capital improvements for their programs. The tasers, I think someone asked about the tasers before. I don't remember who, so please forgive me. But one of the issues with the tasers was that while we bought the tasers were obsolete. The manufacturer doesn't even supply the parts for those anymore. So we turned those in so that we would be able to get, or that we would be able to lease tasers. Please forgive me. We were going to lease the tasers. And there was a reason for that as well. Leasing the tasers will allow us to have a more even expense for that over the years. So it's not going to fluctuate up and down. It's something that we can anticipate for the next 5 years. So those are a couple of examples of what has been included in there. I have to say, I do honestly agree with Ms. Underwood. When we first started talking about this, I tried to give a basic overview. If I may just back up for just a moment, I had a very wonderful conversation with Mr. President a couple weeks back, and we were talking about
This one or Joe Biden?
Mr. Graver, Mr.
Okay.
President. I don't talk to the president. We were having a very good conversation. We were talking about what our role is as a city. And we have to focus on basically 3 primary things: public safety, roads, and then in our case, recreation, if that is available. And if we do those things, then we are making our city inviting for people to come in. I believe that we're doing a good job on the roads. Yes, I'm speaking with a bias. However, I will tell you that, I know I've heard feedback. And people have said very positive things about Galbraith Road. Because that's what our focus is. And people can see their local dollars at work in that. So the same thing here. When we're talking about the police and fire levies, I want to be able to make sure that people see the firefighters available, that they will be able to see some of the repairs that we need to the building, and the same thing with the police. So some of the other things, as you all had pointed out, because of the fact that we did have some availability, and of course these are not ongoing, which is one of the reasons that while they're really kind of more kind of windfall, but putting the money in community environment, it's not there for an ongoing, because there are, quite frankly, the money that we are getting from the Recovery Act funds is not going to be money that's going to be repeated over and over. However, if we do, as Mr. Miller-Novak says, and we invest smartly, then what we could do is we would be inviting potential businesses and residents to move in. Businesses, of course, like as everybody sees, we have a Dollar Tree that's moving in. And I think they're doing a good job on the building. It's not an ugly-looking building anymore. It's actually a pretty decent-looking building. That brings employees. That brings payroll tax. So as we're doing that and increasing our tax revenue, that gives us the opportunity to do other things. So that's really kind of the rationale behind it.
Mr. President?
Mr. Miller-Novak?
So I got a few questions and there's a couple comments. So this ending balance here, the 339,250. So earlier you said that this budget doesn't reflect the money that we're spending on, like the CARES Act money that's being applied to salary. So technically speaking, this is bigger than this, right?
Correct.
Because that 200 or whatever it is, or is it 159?
No, basically, Mr. Miller-Novak, what you would have to do is, even though we have the 255 down there, you take that out, what you end up doing is basically adding it to the top
To the ending
number.
balance.
Right.
So it'd be closer really to $600,000.
Right, 500, close to 600,000.
Okay, and then that doesn't include the Recovery Act money. None of this does, right?
Well, the beginning, yes, that's correct. The beginning, that ending balance that you're talking about does not include that. Correct.
So if you added the 250 plus you add the roughly 400 that's sitting in the bank kind of thing, then we're talking about almost $1 million left that we haven't even budgeted then. in a sense.
Yes, in a sense.
Okay, which is a long way to say, I think we could afford $50,000 for economic development. Yeah?
No,
It's
that's
not
what I
even
said.
really that big an investment at this point in time. I mean, you're talking about a $340,000 balance. It's about to have $250,000, $257,000 added to it, plus there's $400,000 of Recovery Act funds that are sitting in the bank that don't even have the restrictions on them that the CARES Act funds do. We could theoretically spend those funds on almost anything we want.
There are some restrictions, but yes, they're far fewer than.
They're far fewer than what we had with CARES Act. And either way, we could spend them on things that we already have to spend general budget money on, which would free more general budget money that would basically could be spent on anything. So technically speaking, those restrictions are somewhat of a mirage. I'm sorry, it's just the way life works. Because if you spend them on things that you already have to spend money on, it frees up your general fund money that you could spend on anything, theoretically speaking. So what I'm hearing is that this budget's here, right? And then we have almost $1 million surplus that hasn't been budgeted yet. And I think that's important because, again, that feeds into that point. I'm not saying we spend it on beer and cigarettes, folks, but those things that we essentially don't have the money to do, like invest in economic development, we say those things. I mean, it's a business thing. You know, you got to spend a little bit of money to make money. You got to advertise, you know. I mean, yes, the website needs to be redone. We've talked about that. This is a good time to do that. We've got money for the splash pad. It's going to be one of the first successes we've had in this city, I think, to that degree in a long time. We got the transit center coming.
Got money for mulch.
We got money for mulch, man. Mulch. We can even get the stuff that's red if we wanted to, or black. We can have good mulch if we wanted. So, I mean, this is like the time, folks, that we have to actually invest and build and put money into economic development to bring money. Because also, on the flip side, we have had some windfalls this year in terms of government money that are not things we'll be able to count on in the future. And the problem is, this is the time to invest some of that money to get some income coming in, more businesses, more tax dollars. So when we don't have windfalls in the future, we've got more income coming in. I mean, we ultimately have to think of ways to get more income into this city, to get more money into this city. And you have to spend a little bit of money to do that. And the last thing I want to say about the budget, as I know some of these numbers have gone up, right? I mean, I can look at that and look at past years and say they've increased. But I think the thing that we also have to recognize is that we've grossly underfunded some of these line items for years too. I mean, our city building that our firefighters and our cops are in is just like been grossly underfunded for years. It's in crappy condition. We didn't have a generator. There was problems with, I think, carbon monoxide, even like having problems with that leaking, bad ventilation from the garage that we weren't letting go, leaky roofs over there. You know, that building's in terrible condition because these line items have been underfunded for years. So yeah, they're gonna go up because we haven't had money to fix things for like a decade or two that have gotten increasingly run down. And this is what, I mean, you know, honestly, this is the numbers that you would see in a healthier budget. You know, it's like if you didn't have enough money to fix something in your house and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and then you get your tax returns and then you're like, wow, I'm gonna get new carpet and do that stuff. I mean, we're kind of at that point financially. We've been there for a long time. Now we've actually got some money. It's time to invest it. And I guess this leads me to this point. You know, I don't know if we need to do it by motion, but Ron, I want you to move money into economic development from that ending balance. Figure out a line item and put it in there. And I don't know if we should motion to vote to instruct you to do that or not. I don't really know. I don't know that that's necessary, but if anybody wants me to motion, I'm happy to do it. And that way, if the majority of council disagrees with me, we might as well get that done now. I just think you take the money from the ending balance. You don't have to necessarily shortchange any other part of the budget. Maybe you can find or create a line item under administration that is specifically appropriated for economic development, contracted services, or something like that. Or if there already is one that's been zeroed out, because we used to have one and we no longer do. We had one more recently than the pool, I think. So, you know, I don't know. I guess I moved to do that.
Well, if I could, Mr. Milanovic, I
Go
mean,
for it.
this, you know, right now, you're just in, this is just discussion. There is no formal ordinance that is set before council to consider. This is clearly, as you all mentioned, it's under new business. I mean, I can add it, and then council can deliberate it in the form of the ordinance once it's prepared. You are the chair of the finance committee, so, you know, I would work with you in order to get that finalized. So, in other words, tonight there is no reading because there's no ordinance.
Well,
So
I know
can-
there's no reading, and I understand that, but
Yeah.
at the same point in time, I know it's also work to take
It is. I
a
mean,
number from here and, you know, add it somewhere else, you know what I mean? Because that essentially shifts all the numbers, and I'm sure this is an Excel sheet that self-adds or populates or whatever you want to call it. I'm not an Excel guy, but, nonetheless, yeah, I'd like to see a budget where that's moved and that's added in. And I appreciate some of the things you said earlier. I mean, I admit, I didn't know that there was money in here for the impound lot and some of the other things we've been wanting to do and asking for, and I'm happy there is. I'm happy that some of those decisions that were asked of you today, when your answer was, that's because you guys have been asking for it for a while. For me, that's good. That means you listened to us and you ultimately set up a budget that took care of some of the things that have been on our Christmas list for a long time and we weren't getting when we opened our presents. So I'm happy that that's there, but the Red Ryder BB gun in the corner room for me is economic development, so I'd like 50 grand there.
Mr. President.
I had Ms. DeWald next.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to reiterate some of the things that Mr. Milanovic said, but I was excited to hear about that impound lot. I had mentioned it to Ms. Underwood after a meeting one night, and then poof, here it is on the budget. That's been something I've wanted to do since we had to cancel it the first time, because it is a level of revenue. And it's costly for us to keep sending cars somewhere else, so it's kind of a double whammy. We don't spend as much money to do it, and we get money when we do it. Also, I wanted to ask, surprise us, because I kind of glazed over some of the conversations. The islands that we're so attracted to, is there something in the budget for those islands? And
That's what the community environment is.
that, okay. And then, so the islands then put me in mind of the Public Works. I know we have a part-time person, but we don't know how long. So I know we probably need him, probably. I can't see that our Public Works could say, no, send him away, because we have a very small Public Works group. Is there any way that that part-time person would stay permanently, and how do you do that?
Well, under this budget, we have included more hours. Now, let me be clear too, because, you know, that's money that's actually in the gas tax. So it would, and that person's focus would be cleaning up on the streets and, you know, making sure, and, you know, I mean, I've been out in it, and I mean, it makes a difference. I mean, I know I've seen it much cleaner.
I have to agree, pardon me, but Walgreens Corner looks a lot better. So I don't know if somebody said something to Walgreens, or are we doing it, but it looks a lot better.
So under that, because that's a restricted fund, but yes, under that, there is, that has taken into account having a more permanent part-time person. And that was part of the mayor's priority.
Mr. President,
Ms. Nichols?
I would actually prefer to see us, besides Public Works doing it, because they're already stretched as far as they can go. I would like for us to have a landscaper who comes in and maintains that area. Because when we want things done, you know, you feel bad because you put your notice out there, and then I see one of them planting flowers up front. That's not their area, in my opinion, of expertise. I just think if we're trying to go for beautification, you should get someone who works there in that field I would like to see that in the budget. I'm not sure. When we talked about it, we just sort of like breezed by it, but I didn't say that. But I would prefer that it was a landscaper who took care of that.
On that same topic, Mr. President? On that same
Cool.
topic? I know that Finneytown, if I understand it right, their public works has people that's what they do. So is there some way that we can incorporate that into our public works? So that once those flowers are done, once that part is done, then they can be available to do other things.
I know, for instance, in the city of Cincinnati, theirs is recreation. So their recreation crew are the ones who takes care of all of that. Just like you said, it would be that additional person. I guess that would primarily be their job. Because I would like to see year-round. I mean, for me, when I go up and down Hamilton and I see the we need something in there where I don't get emails where the brush is so high, and then we go just take it out. That's not beautification. It just looks like a stump in the middle of the street. And I think we could do more, or there should be more done. Even just because, not for beautification, just because it's there and we need to maintain it, and it needs to look nice.
Right. Mr. President?
Ms. Dukes Dean was next, is that all right?
Oh, no, of course, follow the rules.
Is it my turn?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Dukes Dean.
Okay, I was just gonna comment on Mayor Nichols's comment about the, having somebody. Is it room for us to have maybe a part-time person to do that year-round as opposed to contracting out?
I'm sure if the money is available, but in my opinion, I just think we need someone that's their area of expertise. That's just my opinion. I mean, anybody is trainable. You can train me. I mean, I'm not good with flowers, planting, and, too deep, not deep enough. I would like to see additional people in public works. Our gentlemen are getting to the point where in the next 2 years,
Exactly.
1 or 2 of them will be retiring.
Oh, actually,
Yeah.
next
So-
year, I think, we're looking at least one of them, so we have to look.
Next year, 1, and then the following year, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct,
I think that we do need an additional person full-time in that department.
Then the other question, or a statement I had is, piggybacking on Mr. Miller Novak's comments about our timing and the precipice and which we're at. In respect to council members, their tenure has been much longer than mine. As we go through the budget, we are at a place where we have to make some investments, and what may have been our focus then is different now. And so for me, I feel like it's our opportunity to just kind of put our heads together and work as a team to move the city forward, bringing some of the history of what had been done and what needs to be done now, keeping both of those things in mind. That's it. That's my 2 cents.
Anderson?
Yeah, so kind of related to that. So with the $9,990 that's in community environment, so were you, I have 2 questions. This is the first one. Were you planning on having Public Works do the labor for what we spend that 9,000 on? Does that make sense?
No,
Who was
actually,
gonna do that labor?
well, it was actually what the mayor said.
The landscaper?
Contract with someone to be able to do that work.
So this money would be spent contracting a landscaper. Okay. And then the other thing I was going to say, Mr. Miller Novak brought up a really good point of saying, how could we bring more revenue into the city? And I don't think that this would be a council meeting unless I brought up the police department. I still don't totally understand. It seems to me that not just I, but other people in the city, citizens included who have come to council recently, have had a lot of complaints about the laws that council makes not being enforced by the police department. And I completely understand that a lot of the money that is being added to the police budget is stuff that needs to be done. Like, we have to fix that building, that there's no questions about it. I totally understand that. That building has to get cleaned. I think that we should hire somebody to clean that because it needs to be cleaned. I understand that kind of stuff. But, and I understand we need weapons to be maintained. But I just want to air my frustration about increasing the budget of a department that is currently being shown not to do their job pretty much on a weekly basis. And so it's my recommendation for policy of kind of cracking down on the police department, especially with the possibility of a police levy coming up soon. I just don't think that I would be willing to say, oh yeah, let's pass a police levy, you know, because they've done such a good job so far. It just doesn't feel right to me. Especially when we look at the very next department where Chief Fells has worked way more than part-time, even though he's only paid part-time, which is ridiculous, to fund the department through grants. So that just kind of blows my mind that somebody who's paid full-time can't take his time to do that, but somebody who works part-time can? So it's nothing against anybody in this room. It's just to lay down the law and to lay down my idea and my policy that I don't think that we should be looking to increase the police budget when they haven't proven that they can enforce the laws that we've written for them for the money that they already have. And I understand it's a crazy year with COVID, and I understand that the job looks a lot different from what we see from an outsider's point of view. I understand that de-escalation's a big thing, that you don't want to make your citizens afraid of you. But it's not like we just sit in this room and write laws because we have nothing else to do on a Monday night. We do it because we want them to be enforced and because we want the fine money for what these people are doing wrong and immoral to come back and help make the city even better. So I'm just dumbfounded that we're considering raising the budget for the police that much when it doesn't seem as though they're doing their job now. That is my spiel.
Mr. President.
Mr. Miller Novak?
Along with that, they're getting an impact lot to do less work.
Well, I think you have to consider a couple things. That I don't know. Well, I don't agree. I'm just going to respectfully disagree in the sense of, I've also heard some good stories about the police too. And I think the problem a lot with public service, because you just complimented the fire department, and I always compliment the fire department. That's one place where we agree. I think Brian Fells is great. I think he does a great job. I think our fire department's managed well, especially for the money. We haven't provided them for a very long time. But at the same time, I've heard a lot of people in the public criticize our fire department. And I hear people criticize the police department. And I hear what some of the criticisms are. And, some of them you got to almost take with a grain of salt. I mean, the reality is that negativity tends to be louder than positivity for beginners. And that's one issue. One of the cuts, a lot of the times I hear complaints about the police, it's like they don't pull people over. I saw a person speeding. Well, we only have 3 cops on the road. They're not necessarily going to be on the same street you are at the same exact time. They're not omnipotent. And I think we have to deal with that. Where people run stop signs, they don't do anything. And it's not to say that the police force is going to be perfect and they're going to do a perfect job all the time. I wouldn't mention that either. But I think in fairness to them, I don't really judge any of our employees based upon the complaints that you sometimes get from the public on Facebook or other things, because you have to balance that from positive comments that you also get sometimes, and you have to understand that when people are happy with something, they tend to just not say anything at all sometimes too. So, I think we have to be careful over responding to things. But then the other issue is, I'm not sure, even if you're 100% right, I'm not sure how punishing them via budget is somehow going to achieve. Well, no, your point is that we're spending too much money on them because they're not doing their job right.
I'm saying don't increase it. I'm not saying take away their money. I'm saying why would we give them?
I'm not finished, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, sorry.
It's okay. I'm upset, but I just want to be clear what my thoughts are. I mean, the issue is, I think you have to ask him maybe why some things are increased, because some of the increases are not exactly rewards either. That's not exactly how the budget works. Some things might be increased in certain line items. Well, the one thing we're talking about, Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about doing some capital improvements over there that we haven't done, so that's going to increase their budget. We're talking about leasing tasers, which is a new expense. I know that we were talking about at one point at least a generator or something over there. So some of these increases are because we're taking care of things in the building and certain equipment needs that haven't been met for years. It's not like this is a reward. I mean, that's not really the point of this either. So I just think that your points are more of a criticism of performance, and that's not what we're doing today.
Mr.
I mean, I might
President?
disagree about this criticisms, but there's not even a point in us arguing about that, because it has nothing to actually do with the budget, because these increases aren't rewards. They're just increased cost.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
I know I said at the beginning that I understand that a lot of these costs are very necessary. And I hope that that building does get fixed, and I hope that there are capital improvements. I'm more talking about the fact that we're considering passing a levy or putting up a levy to be passed.
Or not.
And I'm saying that if our part-time fire chief could find not that he should have at all, he shouldn't have needed to do this, but if he can put in the time as a part-time worker to find money, then why can't our full-time chief do that? And I'm not saying that the police officers don't do their jobs. I'm saying that I'm saying that. I have seen there are times when people report crimes, the police show up, and then the police do not follow through on what they are legally required to do when a crime is reported. Now, I understand police can't be everywhere all the time. I mean, I'm not saying that they should. But what I'm saying is when a crime is reported, you would think that when the police do show up and when the police are there, that it would be taken care of. Like I said, I'm not a police officer. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally missing something. But every time that I have asked, there does not seem to be an actual clear answer. So, I totally agree. The building needs to be fixed. I'm glad it's going to be cleaned regularly. I'm really glad that they're going to get that. I'm glad that we're going to get the proper weapons to make sure our area is safe. I'm glad that we're going to get the proper amount of police officers. All I'm saying is I want them to start doing their jobs when crimes are reported. And I'm not making this up from negative comments on Facebook. I really appreciate a lot of our cops in North College Hill, and I let them know really frequently. And I hope that they don't take that the cops who are doing their jobs do not take this personally. I really, truly hope that. Because I worked at Skyline. I've had to call the police on them when somebody walked in and said, I'm about to catch a murder charge tonight if you don't walk away from me. I appreciate what they do, but that doesn't mean that they're always doing their jobs all the time and that they couldn't do more. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. President.
Ms. Dukestein?
So I think I'm somewhere in the middle of Ms. Ms. Anderson and Mr. Miller Novak, and I agree that the budget is not the place where we decide whether, from an HR point, that the police are or aren't doing their jobs. I think that adding to the budget or taking away from it or leaving it as is isn't meant to be rewarding or punitive, but an evaluation to make sure, hey, are the police actually utilizing the funds that are currently allocated to them appropriately, is I think what you're trying to say.
Yeah, thank you.
But, and that's where our focus should be, not necessarily the HR part of it. Just is this line item appropriately fulfilling the need of our police department and what they will need to function, is where I think we should look, minus the HR stuff. I mean, that will all be figured out in the time coming as, you know, council continues to press forward. But what do they need to function going forward, is where I think we should look at.
Thank you, Ms. Dukestein. And yeah, let's move on to not trying to determine whether or not a function of the city is doing their job or not, and go back to the budget.
Mr. President,
Ms. Dukestein?
Mr. Mosby, on that line item with the police, what are the increases representative of? Is that the day-to-day, is that the building improvements, or is that just divvied to the police and their salaries?
Which line item are you referring to, a specific line item or just the budget overall for the police department?
The budget overall for the police department. I closed my computer, I'm
All
sorry.
right, so to be very clear, I think I need to reiterate this. As council knows, this past year, the police portion of the budget accounted for slightly over 50%. So when I did the budget this year for 2022, I reduced that. So the number is actually closer to between 46 and 47%. So actually, the percentage of the general fund has gone down. So that's number one. There are some improvements that we are doing. One of them is we want to put a security system on that building. So that will be included as well. That's a small amount, but it's still, you know, part of that.
And it'll be this building as well.
Correct, yes. And then we're also looking at a camera system, although that's for the parks, but still, that's part of the security system. So, long story short, what we're looking at is a smaller slice of the overall pie from the police department.
Okay. So personally, I think that clarifies a little bit more. And so I think someone else had asked this earlier on. Any of those kind of buckets, I know we can't see those nuances in the budget. And I don't know if you're remembering all of them, but that would be helpful to just kind of say, hey, projectively, we see this here, we see that there. For example, someone had mentioned the impound lot. And I don't personally want to come after you as a witch hunt, but those are just nice, I guess, positive affirmations that the budget is moving in the direction that we want the city to go in. So not being able to see those hidden in a line item is because they're not, you know, we don't know what it's there for. So I don't know that is me saying, what is this line item and why are we increasing here? But just kind of projectively, that, I mean, what you just added was a wonderful add, like to the improvements to this building and improvements to that one, the security system. That's good information to say, hey, this budget is moving definitely in the right direction. So,
Mr. President.
that's it.
Mr. Miller Novak?
All right, I'm looking at the clock.
It's an hour fast. It wasn't set back, but it is approaching 10. So I thought it was approaching 11. I was like, I like you people, but not this much on a Monday night. So maybe what we should do at this point. I mean, obviously it's been productive tonight. So
if I may, I mean, I've heard from Ms. Zorb, I've heard from Ms. Dukes-Dean. I don't have a problem at all with doing basically kind of a supplemental overview that I can put in writing. I can certainly do that. Just give me
some
a
of those
week or
changes,
so.
I think, are what they're asking about.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, which I think are, that's kind of fair. Like, like, hey, these are different from last year. We're going to have some money appropriated for the whatever. I think that's what they're asking for, and it's,
And
seems like a
that's
pretty
reasonable.
sensible request.
Absolutely. That's
So,
what I'm saying.
maybe what we can do is schedule a committee of the whole meeting. And like I said, I'd like to see that some money moved into economic development somewhere. Maybe you can produce that little, maybe we've identified it all and maybe there's nothing else to say. But maybe you could just do like the smallest report that just essentially says, hey, here's some differences you might notice because we're going to make these improvements over there. We're going to add this. Because it is good for us to know, because honestly, those are successes for me, hearing that you're addressing those concerns and we've got the money to do it. And then that way we can say, cool, thanks. And approve the thing and get it done in a timely fashion would be cool too. So,
Very true.
How quickly would you like to do your committee of the whole meeting? I'm sorry, hour.
well, let's give Ron a fair amount of time to create such a thing, because we don't know what he's got to do this week. So maybe,
There is an extra Monday in the month.
oh, is there really the 29th?
Is that quick enough? Does that give him time?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, is anybody else? I mean, it's really only
What was that? I'm sorry.
2 weeks from now,
The 29th?
Monday the 29th.
Oh, that's the last Monday, yeah. That's a fifth Monday.
Yeah.
That would be fine.
So we're gonna do a committee of the whole that day.
Are you making a motion?
I mean, yeah, sure. I move that we meet as a committee of the whole Monday, November 29th, in council chambers at normal bat time, 7 p.m. Sound good to everyone?
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald?
if that's a motion, I second that.
It was a motion, and I will take your second.
What time?
7.
PM.
7 o'clock. Okay.
Normal time, normal place.
All right, we have a motion for a committee of the whole to be conducted on Monday, November 29th, 2021 at 7 PM. Motion by Mr. Miller Novak, second by Ms. DeWald. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
do we have to specify what the committee of the whole is for, or can it just be for whatever?
I don't believe we have to
I don't believe
specify.
it.
I don't remember.
It's a
We've done
special
one a lot.
meeting. I mean, just committee of the whole to discuss the budget. I mean, it's not like we'd leave time to talk about anything else, so, yep.
All right, I'll call the roll. Ms. Dukes-Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Blythe?
Abstain.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak?
Yes.
Ms. Zorb? Ms. DeWald?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 with an abstention. Any other new business?
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald?
I did forget to mention in under column members, do we have any dates, future dates for the leaf pickup? Do we know what those are?
Yes, I mean, we're scheduled, so that is a good question. So we're scheduled for this coming Saturday, the 20th, and then the 4th. There was a challenge, I'll be honest. Rumpke had come back and said that we really didn't, they only picked up from like 19 houses. Now, having said that, I was also informed, as typically we do, that some houses were missed. So we're gonna look at just going ahead and doing this one this Saturday, because I know more leaves have fallen. But if we don't have an increase in that, then we're probably gonna not do the 4th of December.
Mr.
Because
President.
obviously that's extra money for us.
I do know that on my street alone, that was way too early, and we have lots of old trees that love to just drop leaves everywhere. And this time, we're just covered with leaves, so it was probably just too early.
Well, I don't know that it was too early as much as the fact that the weather made the leaves fall later than normal.
Correct.
Too warm.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So I'll plan on having them come out on the 20th.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak?
I move that we adjourn.
Mr.
I
President,
second that.
if there's no further business, I
Ms. DeWalt.
second. Mr. President, if
You
there's
jumped the gun.
if there's no other business, I second.
Oh, Ms. Dukestein already did.
She didn't say Mr. President.
Yeah, I took hers away.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Miller Novak, second by Ms. DeWald. I will call the roll. Ms. Dukestein.
Yes.
Ms. Blythe.
Abstain.
Ms. Underwood.
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak.
Yes.
Ms. Zorb.
Yes.
Ms. DeWald.
Yes?
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. We are adjourned.
Time to take more medicine. I gotta go.
Sweet old time.
Be a cough.
You feel better?
Thank you.